And council staff and those that are joining with us virtually, as well as those that are joining with us in person. Those that are here in the council chamber, I would remind you to please put your phones on vibrate or off at this time. Our trivia for today, this day in history, the first clash of the Riel Rebellion took place in Duck Lake, Saskatchewan. Today is Purple Day, aimed at raising the awareness of epilepsy, condition that affects over 65 million people globally. This meeting will be streamed live and recorded for public viewing on the town's YouTube page. We acknowledge that this land on which we are gathered today is part of the ancestral land, the Chippewa, the Ottawa, and Potawatomi peoples, referred to collectively as Anishinaabe. It is through the connection of the Anishinaabe with the spirit of the land, the water, and air that we recognize their unique cultures, traditions, and values. Together as treaty people, we have a shared responsibility to act with respect for the environment that sustains all of life, protecting the future for those generations to come. Council, I would remind you two things. First of all, we have a complete full agenda this evening, not only an open meeting, but as well as we're going in camera later on. And if you have a pecuniary interest, I would remind you to declare it at the appropriate time. So this evening we have one delegation, and I'd like to welcome Sarah Hubble from Canoe Procurement. And Sarah, you're going to do a presentation for us, kind of as an education to help us out.
Yes, perfect. That's great, just like that. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, and community for allowing me to be here today. I had a nice little drive through multiple weather systems, I guess, from Kingston, Ontario, left this morning, but it was a lovely trip to get here to be able to present to you today. So again, my name is Sarah Hubble. I am the Ontario and Nunavut Client Relations Manager for Canoe Procurement Group of Canada. And today I'm going to take you through a little bit of information about who Canoe is and the options and opportunities we have for entities like yourself to leverage some of the contracts that we currently have in place. Slide. So I'll start with who is Canoe. So Canoe is a Canadian not-for-profit group purchasing organization. We originally started doing group buying back in 1936 out in Western Canada and slowly made our way across the country. Currently, right now, we operate from coast to coast and have over 5,000 members that fall into the MASH sectors. So municipalities, academic, school, healthcare, but we also work with any not-for-profit public entity and a lot of First Nations communities as well. We are very unique. Oh, sorry. No, it's okay. We are very unique in that we have a couple different partnerships that make us stand out from other GPOs or group purchasing organizations. Before we enter into a province, we partner with the municipal association there. So when we came into Ontario in 2019, we partnered with AMO or LAS to be able to provide our solutions to their members and members in various sectors. We're also partnered with Sourcewell. A lot of entities have purchased from Sourcewell before. They are a government group purchasing organization based out of the state of Minnesota. We have a Canadian partnership with them where we will actually leverage their membership and their lead on procurements to not only save money for our members, but also expand those procurements and those RFPs nationally across Canada for Canadian suppliers. We are not an ordering platform or software, and we are not a substitute for your purchasing teams. We're there to help make things a little bit more efficient and ensure trade compliance and obviously save some time and money. So this is just a quick map of our reach. So as I said, we are active coast to coast. We're in every province and territory right now except Quebec. We're not in Quebec right now because we are working on that partnership with their association, but you can see all the other associations that we're partnered with on the right-hand side of the screen. This is just a quick overview as well of entities that are members with us in various sectors. So we always encourage our members, if any of these types of entities are within your community, they do have the opportunity to become a member and leverage the contracts or the group purchasing pricing that we currently have in place for our over 360 awarded contracts. So how do we help our members? As a group purchasing organization, we take our aggregated buying power and we use that to get preferred pricing and substantial discounts for our members. We also save our members time. So we complete that RFP process on behalf of our members, ensuring compliance not only with the CFTA, with CETA and other jurisdictional trade agreements across Canada. So we post all of our notices and our RFPs nationally on the platforms listed there to allow for Canadian suppliers to have that opportunity to respond and be awarded contracts for our members to leverage. Other value pieces is member support. So that's me. I work with all of our members in Ontario and Nunavut. So whether it's signing up, making your first purchase through Canoe, having quotes reviewed to make sure they align with the master contracts, we have team members in place to be able to assist you with that. Currently, right now, we have over 360 awarded suppliers that range from a variety of different categories. So anything from heavy construction equipment, ag equipment, winter maintenance equipment, office supplies, and really everything in between. You can also continue to work with your local distributors. So our contracts are negotiated at the OEM or original equipment manufacturer level. The reason for that is as a national company, the dealers and suppliers locally are going to change from province to province. So when the OEMs are awarded these contracts, they allow their approved local dealers across the country to be able to sell through that contract. So now you can purchase from that local dealer within your community and keep that money as close to home as possible, which is great. There's no membership fee to become a member of Canoe, and there's no minimum purchasing requirements. So for our members, it's completely free. You can choose to leverage as many of our contracts and programs as you want. Or if you just want to leverage a couple here and there, you have that flexibility to do that. In terms of quotes, cost analysis and assessments, it doesn't cost anything to request quotes from our suppliers. So if you reach out, you get a quote, you decide you don't want to move forward, you let that supplier know, and you can go a different route. So there's really no strings attached to being able to leverage any of the contracts that we have in place. Compliance. So we have a procurement team, a procurement legal team, contract team that ensures that all of our contracts are compliant with the Canadian Free Trade Agreement, the European Trade Agreement, and as I mentioned, any other jurisdictional trade agreement that is currently in place between provinces. We make sure that when we run the procurement process, it's fair, open, transparent, non-discriminatory, so much so that we even post our procurement documents publicly on our website without a username or password. So whether anyone here in council, anyone within the community, or any supplier that doesn't have a contract with us can go and access those documents and take a look at the master contracts, the RFP, the evaluation summaries, just to kind of see how we go through that process. What we do with our members is we ensure that your bylaws are up to date with cooperative purchasing language, and we also make sure that you are compliant with the CFTA in terms of posting a notice of participation. That is something where typically I would send you an example of how the county has it laid out, and maybe you would kind of follow that direction as well. And then just to kind of wrap things up, this is showing the traditional versus cooperative procurement steps. A lot of people find that when they leverage a Canoe contract, it seems very simple. They're missing steps. They want to understand, what steps are being completed. Steps 1 through 11, and probably a couple more, are being fully completed by Canoe on behalf of our member. And in turn, using a cooperative as a member, you whittle your steps down to about 4, maybe 5 steps. So there's the efficiency there and time savings, and then all the other components I mentioned as well in terms of cost savings too. This just summarizes, and I wanted to make sure that anyone that had access to this document could go to the Canoe website, take a look at the contracts, the programs we have in place. But as I mentioned, we have about 76 programs offered to our Ontario members and currently over 360 awarded suppliers. And I will wrap up there and open it up to questions.
All right, well, thank you, Sarah. Also, do you have any questions for Sybil? Councilor Van Claveren?
Thanks very much for that presentation. We have some good tried and true examples of success with cooperatives here in our municipality. How do you get paid? I'm not 100% clear on that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So you can see within any of our contracts, it's also listed in our RFPs that suppliers have to pay an administration fee. This also links to why we have a partnership with the municipal association within the province. So every supplier at the time of their contract award will negotiate an administration fee that they have to pay on every sale. They cannot add that to your invoice. Let's say for argument's sake, it's 2% depending on the supplier. 1% if it's a Sourcewell Canute contract goes to Sourcewell for their time in that procurement. Canute takes the other 1% and we actually split ours in half and give it back to the municipal association within the province that the sale was made. And they will use that to support communities within that province in whatever capacity needed.
And to be an approved local dealer, is that a lot of paperwork there? Is that difficult or challenging?
So it's not really anything the local dealer has to do. So when the OEM, so let's say the red supplier is awarded a contract, it's typically awarded at the OEM level because of our reach. And the local dealer in Alberta is going to be different than Ontario. So the OEM is awarded that contract and then they provide a list of approved local dealers across the country that can sell through that contract. So if your approved local red dealer is in town and that's the closest one to you, 9 times out of 10, that is going to be the one that you purchase from. What we typically see, and we have a supplier team in place, is because there are so many different suppliers and dealers, even in the province of Ontario, they need a refresher and a training to make sure they know how to price properly through that contract and report it back to the OEM. And that's what our team is in place to do as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Willett?
Yeah, John's conversation there is interesting, and that's what I was trying to figure out, how we get around our local, like we like to deal locally, buy local, right? Example that would, let's say, would be pickup trucks. Now, going with your organization to go and get us the best price for a pickup truck. To get around our locals who we like to deal with, you come back to us and tell us you can get us a pickup truck in Winnipeg for $5,000 cheaper. We say, yeah, but we gotta like to deal with a local guy. You wouldn't recommend that we go with a local guy who was $5,000 cheaper, would you?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the nice thing with our program, well, first and foremost, we don't have light duty vehicles yet. So I'm gonna, you know what, but for this argument's sake, let's say it's a lawnmower, okay? You get to pick who you want to go to in terms of local dealer. We don't go and say, here's your pricing. If we have a green supplier listed on our website with a contract in our ground maintenance program that can sell you a lawnmower and you've purchased from their local dealer, you walk right into your local dealer, say, your OEM has a contract with Canute. We would like to leverage that contract. Can we see contract pricing? And we are a member of Canute. So that you get to choose who you go to in terms of pricing. So again, that's another reason why, because with a green dealer, there can be, you know, the one supplier, but there might be Brandt, right? So it just depends who's local to you. And you get to make that decision. We don't make that decision for you. All we do is review the pricing to make sure it aligns with the contract.
That's interesting. We do have lawnmowers that are over $100,000 too.
I've seen a lot of quotes come through with.
Okay, I see how it works.
Yeah, for sure.
That's all.
Deputy, anything from you? Am I right? Any questions? Councilor Rodriguez?
Thank you.
So just to be clear, so these suppliers also sign up to this system, but there's no membership fee. It's more like the 1% if you're.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So suppliers don't sign up. They would have to respond to an RFP. They'd have to be awarded a contract and then they would go onto our website. The way that we keep our lights on is through the supplier administration fee. So within the RFP, when we post that, we identify that there's an administration fee component. Airlines, you know, that's something that they have to come to us and say, we're willing to pay 3% administration fee on all sales, right? And then at the contract award time, if they're awarded, we make sure that that 3% still stands with them. Sometimes they want to negotiate that to, you know, 1.5. So at that contract time, that's when we negotiate, but it has nothing to do with our members. Our members pay nothing. So you just sign up and you get a member number and then you begin to leverage any of the contracts that we have.
What's your question?
Go ahead. If it doesn't continue.
I'm just trying to figure out how suppliers get into.
So
How do they even know it exists?
So typically suppliers will put in, so when you guys go out to market, they will either look at your bids and tenders page to see the opportunities that come up. If the county goes out to market, they will go and set up notifications so that if the county goes and says, we are looking for a motor grader, if they sell motor graders, they will get that notification that the county or Sarnia is going out to market for that. It's the same with us. So we'll go to market for heavy construction equipment. We will list motor graders, excavators, all of those items that are listed in the depth and breadth of our RFP. Suppliers, typically OEMs, will be registered to get those notifications. They will see that opportunity, they will respond to that RFP, go through that procurement process, and if they are successful throughout that process, they will be given a contract. So again, that's where it's the OEMs, and the OEMs typically know who those big group purchasing organizations are, and us, Sourcewell, we know that the province of Ontario also does that as well. So they know which GPOs to look for and look for those opportunities. And in our case, the OEMs are awarded those contracts, and then the approved local dealers are able to sell through that OEM contract.
Is there a Buy Canada First kind of policy about it?
Mr. Mayor. So we make sure that the compliance pieces are all in place in terms of the trade agreements that are how they're currently set. Where the Buy Canada, that comes down to how you define it. So essentially, if you're purchasing through one of our contracts, you're purchasing from your most local approved dealer. If that meets the requirements of your Buy Canada, because you're supporting the local supplier who employs people, who has an office here, then absolutely you can do that through a contract. It really comes down to what your language is around Buy Canada.
Vision,
All been asked. Thank you.
Councilor Bojan?
Nothing from me. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you again, sir, for that very enlightening presentation, and we think we've learned something today.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a safe trip back home. Okay, council, let's go to item 5.1. I have a motion by Councilor Bojan, seconded by Councilor Rodriguez, that the report submitted by Paul De Silva, Director of Public Works, dated January the 20th, 2025, regarding a traffic study in Arrow Village be received as information. Mr. De Silva is here, the author of the report. Is there anything, Mr. De Silva, that you'd like to add to it?
No, nothing at this time, just that this report is intended to be received as information. There are a few recommendations in the discussion portion of the report, things that staff feel that we can do to help the situation a little bit. Unfortunately, when it comes to a road like this, there's no silver bullet, so to speak, on how to calm traffic. So we do think that we can put a few measures in place that will help out.
I know Councilor Bojan, you had asked for this. Are you comfortable with this report? Is there anything you'd like to ask further?
Not necessarily, just to thank Paul for doing that. I know last time when we focused on in front of the public school, we focused on inside the hamlet. There was complaints of speed, and the data showed that though there was some minor speeding, it wasn't as bad as we thought it was. This one was quite obvious that it is as bad as people say it is. Because when we rebuilt that road, we put that walkway, so families are using it. Kids are biking down it, and you've got cars. I mean, if I can't remember what it was, but it was at 85% are going 70 kilometers or more in a 50. So clearly there's a speed issue. So I'm fine with the more passive efforts to see if, putting the radar sign helps, continuing to get people to report to OPP. OPP was there a couple of days ago, actually, at the end of Fleming. So that's good, but it's something to keep an eye on, because I mean, when you got kids riding their bikes down there and cars are going 70 to 90 down at 50, it's something to do something about it.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Thank you. I don't know if you're familiar with Hubbard Line going into Forest. So Hubbard Line kind of reminds me of Fleming, in the sense that, you got that 80K and you drive straight into a residential area and it changes without any visual change happening. And I know some residents along there who stretch with little ones, so they asked for the radar sign to go up. So put a temporary one up, and then it disappeared, and then the problem started. And so they actually were able to install a permanent radar sign there. And so I reached out to the one resident on there and asked him if he has found it, because it's been up for some time now. if he's found it beneficial, and he said absolutely. I mean, you're always gonna have some speeders, but it really has reduced the amount of speeding on that road, so I'm not sure if we're able to get something like they have. It's got a solar thing on it that powers it.
Mr. De Silva.
Through you, your worship. That's absolutely something we can do. Now Fleming is quite a long stretch of road and there's quite a few side streets that kind of come off of it. So where exactly you put these signs could be a topic of debate. In our experience, and that's contrary to what you just said, is that once these signs are up for a while, people tend to ignore them. We like to deploy them on a rotating basis because it just brings additional awareness to the situation. So we try to do it, say, in the spring and then again in the fall. But these permanent installations absolutely can be done. But it just, where do you put them? And then once you put them there, just be prepared for the additional request to basically put them everywhere. So you kind of need to have a defined set of criteria where you're willing to deploy them.
Anything further? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Passed. Thank you, Mr. De Silva, for that report. Okay, we'll go to item 5.2. I have a motion by Councillor Walvett, seconded by Councillor Van Claveren, that the report by Adam Sabansky, Chief Administrative Officer, dated March 20th, 2025, regarding the proposed Huron Shores Optimus Community Project fundraising plan be received, and that council provide comments so the final fundraising plan can be developed, endorsed, and incorporated into a future agreement between the Huron Shores Optimus and the town of Plympton-Wyoming. And I believe, Teresa, you're going to be speaking on that this evening. John Mark, are you presenting it as well, or Dean? Is Teresa? Steve? She's on her own? Sure, you'll be just fine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I just wanted to, thank everyone for giving us the opportunity to present this plan to you today. I just want to recognize up front that we've also submitted a letter in response to the draft agreement and some revisions there. Don't know if we're going to be addressing that. Obviously, that's at council's discretion. However, questions may need to be taken back to the board, or other members of the Optimus that are here may be able to answer. So starting into our fundraising plan. We've applied for the grant, as everyone knows, so that would cover 50% of the total cost. That would be leaving all of us with just over $1 million to cover. We've raised over $100,000 to date, with almost $90,000 remaining, and our fundraising efforts continue. There is another grant in consideration as well, with an application deadline of May 1st. So that financial summary page just kind of gives you the overview of, the $100,000 and why we're sitting at 90. So some of our fundraising initiatives will consist of mailers to announce the project, as well as a billboard at the site, draws, lotteries. We're also looking to hire an individual externally to manage social media, donations, whether they be in kind from local industries. Sponsorship program and buy a brick campaign, and as already mentioned, continuing with existing fundraising events. We've already given consideration to additional events within our fundraising committee, such as golf tournaments, movie nights, etc. Additional events to be discussed later. I'm not going to go through all of the initiatives in detail, just kind of give a brief summary of all of those, because I know everyone has a copy of this report. So the community mailer would be to engage residents in the project and seek donations while offering tax receipts for donations that are greater than $20. The billboard at the project site would be an indirect return on investment for the sole purpose of awareness and excitement within the community. We believe that every time somebody drives by, they'll be able to see the exciting plans for that particular location in Kamlaki. The Kamlaki Summer Send-Off, it's a well-known event in the community. It's been very successful over the last several years, and it continues to grow each and every year. It attracts people within the community and outside of it, which also shows the strength and reach that our community already has. We will also take the opportunity at the summer send-off to promote our Buy a Brick campaign and sponsorship opportunities. Draws and lotteries, we would be looking to launch both online and in person. Draws and lotteries once we receive the necessary approvals. And then we would look to have one major prize per year, whether that be a car draw or a major 50-50 run over a course of time. Again, those final details can be determined. Our social media, as already mentioned, would be engaging an expert for social media content, and outreach will be a beneficial component of our fundraising strategy. We can showcase milestones through social media of the project and ensure our online presence is consistent. Consistency is key when we're doing a community project. We'll also collaborate, of course, with the town on social media messaging. Another key component is the fundraising initiatives will be donations from industry and trades to reduce the project costs. We intend to recognize the contributions through social media, obviously with the consent to do so. We realize that some people may not want to always be named. Sponsorship program that will have additional perks for larger donations, potential naming rights for platinum tier. Details are still to be refined through this component through additional discussions with Optimist in the town. Buy a brick. Buy a brick could be in the form of a plaque, a wooden art form within the facility, special bricks that can highlight individual donations. It'll showcase the members of the community as building blocks for the facility. And then the final initiative within this plan is to continue our grassroots events, as I already mentioned. We do continue to develop new ideas. One new idea that came into play this year is karaoke already. We've already given consideration to other events later on in the year, but of course, I'm not going to speak to those because they're not yet in fruition. So then I've also provided in that plan the financial overview, which is a summary of all of our initiatives that we have just went through. Our next steps, as far as our Optimists are concerned, are to establish subcommittees, which would be responsible for each of those initiatives, develop timelines, engage partners, monitor our progress, as well as communicate updates to our community, to the town, within our own organization effectively. And that's the entirety of it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Teresa. Okay, Council, I'm sure you might have some questions. I'm going to begin on my right. Councilor Bojan, anything from you to begin with?
Sure. I've got some stuff written down. If you want me to start, it might be a little bit longer. You started. Yeah, I've got some notes here because I know the Optimists are looking for comments and they're looking for some substance. So once again, thank you for your ongoing efforts. I'm going to start with in the letter from the Optimist Board of Directors, there's a comment in there that suggests council might not be on board or believe in spending money on recreational infrastructure in the Kamloops years. So I just want to start as an individual to be crystal clear for anyone listening and for the Optimists that I fully support increased investments in recreational assets in the Kamloops area. It's a no-brainer. There's been a massive boom. There's more families, more people living there than ever before. So yeah, I fully support investing in the Kamloops here. So I just want to make that clear for anyone listening, just because it was floated in that letter. The staff report states that the committee is only seeking comments at this time because of the pending grant application. So I would agree with that, but it's clear the Optimists also want some sort of answer when it comes to the 50% fundraising requirement. So that's what I'm focusing on. I appreciate their desire for a real answer, but in order to give a real answer, we have to address two key unknowns. Number one, the project cost, and number two, the status of the grant application. So before I can answer those, or to answer the question from the Optimist, I'm going to address those unknowns just for argument's sake to get through tonight. I think waiting indefinitely on a final quote or a final estimate, it's not working. So I think to actually move forward, especially tonight, to give some sort of answer, I propose that the budget be set at the number that was applied for in the grant. which was 2,278,000, I believe. Because I think it appears that staff are of the belief it's a realistic quote. The optimists think it might be a little bit conservative, be a little bit lower. So I think if we set that benchmark for project budget, then at least we have a number here. So when we're talking about 50% or whatever that looks like, we at least know what we're talking about. And then if the costs come in higher, then the project might have to be scaled down to fit that budget, and vice versa. If it comes in under budget, then it's less money fundraising burden. So that's the first unknown answered for argument's sake. The second one is the status of the grant. So because the staff recommendation is to or the committee's recommendation is to wait for the outcome of the grant, my answer will be based on if we get that grant. So let's assume we're successful in that grant. So if we get that grant, which would cover 50% of the total budget, I'm personally comfortable with the optimist raising 50% of the remaining cost, which is about 570,000, just to not get into pennies, before the construction begins as it was presented. Based on the confidence of the optimist, it doesn't sound like they have worries about hitting that target quickly. Since the grant funds would be secured as future reimbursements, the town could simultaneously start site preparations up front. If we know we have a grant waiting for us and we're going to be reimbursed, we might as well start site prep. Not only does it help with the tight timeline, because we're talking like a 2-year timeline from the province to have this thing built if we want to use that grant. It also gives the optimists that demonstration for donors like this. They're working on it. And then, of course, align with the optimist proposal, the remaining 50% to be paid back over the term of the agreement. At the end of the day, I think we've gone this far. We've got a grant application in. We're super optimistic that we're going to get that grant. That at this point, it's just how do we get the project done that's financially responsible and realistic for everybody. And so I think that approach would at least provide a clear path forward. If we get that grant, we got 50% of the funding, we got a set budget, and there's a structured fundraising goal for the optimists. So that's where I'm at, to try to give the best of an answer as I can with those two major unknowns. And hopefully it's an answer that has enough substance behind it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Vaizey?
Yes, I agree with everything except the 50%. I think I brought this up at the committee level, so it's nothing new. I don't think the 50% is enough for me to gamble other people's money on a project that there's so many unknowns. I would like to see a minimum 75%, so that if things don't work out, I'm dealing with every taxpayer's money, not just the operator. And I understand, you guys are excited, you want to get going and everything else, but I got to look at the other side of it as well. So I'm an opponent to the 75%. I agree with the totals. The only thing is that 2.4 is at today's dollars. And by the funding, it could be 5-6 years from now that we get the fundraising done. So then that number, again, you're dealing with unknowns, and we're all trying to pick something, but you guys don't know any more than we do, really, when it comes to with the tariffs and all that. We don't know, but I'd be more comfortable with 75% minimum.
Excuse me, Councillor Rodriguez.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I've always supported this, living in that area for years, the want and the need, and there's growth. There's a lot of young families out there. There's absolutely no downside to having this facility. I don't look at it as a risk. I don't look at it as a gamble. It's an investment in the community, and one of the probably the biggest things people want in the community have recreational facilities. They want their taxpayer dollars spent this way. It's been clear from the start, this would be owned by the municipality. It is a municipal asset. And it's fundamental to have these wonderful organizations that want to partner with the municipality to help offset some of those costs to bring that infrastructure to reality. A great benefit for our community. So have that 50%. as a starting point, we'd have this grant. I mean, it's a win-win, and over time, that money, there's a commitment, people all live and work in our communities, have great faith. That over time, that return will be there at the end of the day. If none of this was happening and there was a want for it, that full 2.2 would be coming out of reserves or a taxpayer's money. So anything that helps offset that burden or of reserves, I mean, it's all gonna come back. 100%. It's nothing better than having any recreational facilities in our community. So I have zero problems with the 50%. I do know the bigger concern is whether any of this can happen with grants. So I think we need to kind of wait and see what that.
Yeah, thank you. Councilor Willett?
Thank you. Thanks to the Here Insurance Optimists for the service to your community. And I've always been in support of this project, and I've always said it's always going to be based on the money, honey. I mean, that's where always it ends up. Now, in this report from the committee that we struck to go up there and have a look at all of this, and by the way, I wasn't going to mention this, but I'm going to mention it. I found your letter to be quite intimidating. Some of the words in there, let's be clear, stuff like that. We're trying to figure out what the councils are thinking and what they're not. We're here to serve you as well as the rest of the community. So in that way, I felt it a little intimidating because we're sitting here trying to figure out a way to support you. Then you get a letter like that that kind of starts to question everything we're doing. We're trying to get this thing moving just as well as you guys are. So I wasn't going to say that, but since you sent the letter to us, I want to respond. I think I'm not going to sit here to debate 50%, 75%, 20% or whatever, because without that grant, have no idea where this whole thing is going. And that's your own words in the document, in the letter, right? You say you're going to have to relook at the whole thing if you don't get the grant, because let's face it, $1 million versus $2.4 million is a big difference and a lot of money for you guys to raise, even though I think you can do it. I do belong to a service club, and we put our mind to something, we raise the money, and I think you guys are the same. So a lot of the stuff that's been said here already, I agree with, but we sure got this grant. We sure depend on this grant coming through at this kind of money, over $2 million. And we realize here at this council that probably to run this thing is going to be probably a 2% tax increase to the municipality. So when we sit here and we try to make these decisions, that's the kind of stuff we think about. We have to think about the whole big picture and everybody. So I think it's a great project. I sure hope that we can move this thing forward. I hope we get the grant and maybe some other grants. So I'm not going to tell you whether I agree with 50% or 75%, because it all might come to an end anyways. If we don't get the big grant. So I'm hopefully we will. I can tell you there's lots of grants that we apply for we don't get. So 50-50 chance here. Now it's election time. It's a good time to talk to your politicians and maybe try to enhance that grant or move it forward a little bit. So yeah, I'm not gonna 50%, 75%. If it can go, we'll make it go.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for mentioning about the letter. It did have an interesting tone to it, I thought. I think we can all honestly say that we're rooting for Kamlaki. We're rooting for your service club. We want to make things happen. That goes without saying. So it's neat to meet in this forum, talk about your projects. And if I see a project that has promise, then it's always a yes, unless it has to be a no. Or in this case, I think there has to be compromise. Compromise means some movement on both sides. And that's another thing in the letter. I didn't see a lot of compromisal language. There's a lot of positives here, and I think we can work with it. one thing that your group is equipped with, you've got some great team members that are charged and are ready to go do fundraising. I think you've under-challenged yourself. You've challenged yourself to raise 50%. I think the challenge should be a minimum of 75. And that's not a slam, that's not a criticism, that's just a raising the bar. I think you guys can do it. And, you know, based on these grants, there might be an opportunity as time progresses and we're successful or not, that we might need to compromise the scope of the project. So in the letter, it seemed to be we're doing this or we're out. I'd prefer to see we do this. If that doesn't work, we'll do something different. We'll do something more modest, more modified to a smaller scale, perhaps. It can't be a yes or no. That just really, it has to be, here's our idea. Man, I hope you guys love it and run with it. As a business person, I'm prepared to take risks, but I can't take risks for my neighbor or somebody across the street. So I have a good wife that holds me firm on some projects and so on. Now I'm kind of the wife and to our community. We got to hold everybody at bay or making sure we're being prudent, being wise. And so this does not, none of this has to be negative. This is all positive. We might not land exactly where you'd like us to land, but we can land somewhere. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. See that quote in the local paper.
Yeah, that's the way.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing that, John.
that was good, Mrs. Van Clever.
Stephanie?
Yeah, I believe the project has merit, but the location, and I've always maintained this, that the location still remains problematic with the removal of 5 mature trees. I know you probably think that that's going to happen anyway, but I have to reiterate what I keep thinking about. So the county, current tree canopy in the county is 13.44%, which is half of the recommended level. Here you're going to pull, I know those 5 probably won't make a lot of difference. Still 5 trees. Another concern is the relocation of the playground equipment, which hasn't really been entirely addressed. Instead, what, a couple of years ago, we're going to get new equipment. Yeah, we probably will. Where's it going to go? Where is it going to go so that everybody who is sitting in those bleachers watching their kids play at that playground equipment from all the bleachers, it's visible. Where is it going to go now? So then there's the financing, which is an issue. The town's gonna grant $200,000 towards this project for the AODA washrooms. And if the project proceeds, I support that the 75% funding be in place prior to any construction. And I'll just leave it at that. But
Thank you, Stephanie.
yeah, like I'm willing to go out there and chop coleslaw on those mornings. I don't mind doing all that stuff. But, you know, I think it should be 75%.
Mr. Sabansky, and then I'm going to go back to the others to be able to respond to some of the comments that the council have made.
So just 2 items for clarification, sir. The report was authored by myself with comments provided from the committee. So I know there was a couple comments that came directly from the committee. It is my report with input from the committee members. Also, the recommendation at hand currently is that the fundraising plan from the optimists be endorsed, incorporated into a future agreement. The current recommendation and motion does not discuss the amount to be fundraised, as that was endorsed by a previous motion, which set that amount at 50%. If council wishes to reopen the amount to be funded, a reconsideration motion would be required. And then once the motion is reconsidered, the whole motion would be reconsidered, and then you could adjust the amount to be fundraised as agreed to by council as a whole. So just to be clear, my report was authored based on the 50% that was previously motioned. To move away from that percentage would require a reconsideration motion.
Counselor Rodriguez and Counselor Vacy.
I just don't know why we need to even have that as a consideration at this particular. Have a more pressing issue of if grants will even be granted, whether they'll come back approved, because if they don't come back approved, I mean, there is plenty of concern from the optimists on this, whether it could even proceed from that point. So I'm not sure why we even need to discuss that at this point without even where those grants are at.
I can argue that point. That is why my recommendation stayed with the status quo as directed by motion. However, in the alternatives, given that there has been other councillors and groups who have raised the question of whether or not the 50% was appropriate, I felt that it's best to bring it up during the alternatives. Again, that is an alternative. It is not what is being recommended today. It is not what's on the table today. What is on the table today is accepting the fundraising plan from the Optimist Club, incorporating it into the future agreement, and carrying on forward as motioned by council. That is what's being recommended. However, I felt obligated to provide those alternatives, given some discussions that has occurred amongst the committee, amongst other council members, etc. But it is, again, it's just an alternative. It's not what is being recommended today, nor is it what is actually on the table today.
Counselor Vacy.
Yes, your worship, thank you. If my memory serves me right, which it usually doesn't, wasn't the 50% a minimum? 50%?
It does say minimum in the motion, yes, sir.
So then if we wanted to up it, why would we need to reconsider?
I think changing the percentage level changes the intent of the motion. I don't, if we were looking to have a range, it would have stated a range. I think it wasn't meant to be, it could be more. It was meant to be, this is your starting point. That a minimum of 50% be raised, not 49% or 48, a minimum of 50% be raised. They can raise it 62% and we'd be glad to continue to move forward, but that was the minimum set. I don't, again, there's a motion a year ago. I didn't have intentions when I proposed that to leave it flexible, and the way it's worded, according to the clerk, is not flexible. It would require a reconsideration motion to open up that. So that.
Kimberly, is there anything that you would like to respond back to us?
I just want to say that I have heard everyone's comments today, and I genuinely respect all of those comments. As they are everyone's personal opinions, we can't say anything right or wrong. It's how everyone feels. Obviously, we are passionate about this project. That's why we're bringing it forward. But the one key item that everyone has talked about is it is contingent on that grant. I don't disagree or agree that, you know, any other decisions should or shouldn't be made today. However, I am somewhat in favor of, you know, that 50, 75, those types of things. Once we have information about that grant, I think we can all move forward a little bit more comfortable in all of our positions and where we stand and where we support. Obviously, we fully support it as optimists. There's no question there. But that's really the only comment that I had. I thank everyone for their honesty and truths as we present, you know, our passions and our drive and motivations for this community. I don't know if anyone else has any other comments.
Councillor Walvett.
In your letter, just want to be clear what you mean here and what you don't. We also want to be clear that the optimists would consider such a reconsideration of threshold from 50 to 75% be a clear no for this project. So you heard the discussion here talking about reconsideration of optimists. So if it goes up here to 75, which I have no idea, that's the end of the project? That's what your letter says? Is that what you mean, or is that just a frustration, maybe? I mean, we want to be clear before decision.
Exactly. Sorry, you were gonna.
I think it would have to go back to our committee. We have to discuss as a whole, as a group. Obviously, we were in favor of the first, right? That's what we've come to up to this point. that's what we're in favor of and that's what we're hoping for. But I don't know that it would be a hard no from our committee. It's just my,
Yeah, and again, based on all of the discussions that have happened and the opinions, there's a little bit more information to digest as well and reflect on that letter. And revise stances moving forward as well.
Fair enough. I had to ask the question because it's very clear there. It must be clear. So, but it's not clear, right? Actually.
Up there.
Mr. Sabansky?
And just to provide council an update, the committee through myself will be bringing a report to council next month in regards to submitting an application to the Alex Norman Foundation. You should have that at your first meeting of April. Attached to that report will be an update on the progress of the committee of knocking off a lot of those comments and questions that were posed by council early in this process. And then in May, we're hoping to bring back a very heavily reviewed and mutually agreeable operations plan, which council will have the opportunity to review and have a full understanding of what the potential operation costs of the facility will be. In addition to that, our lawyers in assistance with Optimus members are working through the agreement. We're trying to get to a middle ground. Of course, we're starting out on opposite sides, but we're getting closer to a place where we can work together. Of course, our lawyers are very risk adverse, and we're trying to be as flexible as we can with the Optimus given the circumstances, but it'll take time to work that agreement to there. And all that will be coming to council hopefully within the coming months. So we are working forward as a group, both council members, staff, and committee members to move this here. Unfortunately, it does take time, but we are moving it forward and hopefully can continue to do so.
Mr. Sabansky, I'm going to go to you second, Bob. Councilor Rodriguez, then Councilor Woolman.
Thank you. So if the larger grant was approved and there's obviously another grant application happening, but obviously more money to the table. So in saying that, with these grant opportunities out there, I think we should just kind of focus on that and see where they go first before we discuss anything further, because we might feel more comfortable if there's a lot more money at the table through these grants. So I think that needs to be known.
Councilor Woolman?
I know we probably don't know the answer to that. Any idea when the provincial grant will take place? Any thoughts at all? What month, what year?
Yes, Mr. Sabansky could answer that.
So I was in contact with MPP Bailey's office. They did follow up with the provincial government. Unfortunately, at this time, the government is very silent about when they expect those grants to be announced. They were not able to provide me any kind of comfort of when they intend to make those announcements.
And plus we got a new government, same government. It could be a while.
It is worth noting the province, take it for what it's worth. One of their election promises was increasing that fund even more. So we'll see. I mean, we can keep pressuring EP to get answers, but I mean, if you campaigned on it, let's get some answers.
It is Queen's Park.
This government works slow enough. Imagine how.
So, Teresa, thank you very much for presentation. I think where we're at this evening is the fact a lot hinges on some of these grants that we're going to be looking at. I think we need to continue the open communication between everybody here. Don't think there's a soul here that doesn't think we need something in Kalaki. I think we're all in agreement with that. But I think we have to continue to work together and be open-minded. I won't comment on the letter that Councilor Wolbeck referred to. I was a little offended by it myself. So I think that could have been out of frustration, but we're Plympton-Wyoming and we'll work together to move forward. So maybe we'll leave that with you to take back to your people. We'll wait to see, we'll continue our meetings with our group and to see if we can get some funding in, and then if we'll address it. If we don't, then we'll go to plan B. Okay, but I still think we need that open communication. I think our council wants that, and we will want that. We want something in combined.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Going back to that motion by Council Wilbet, seconded by Council Van Claven, and I'll reread it. Report by Adam Sabansky, Chief Administrative Officer, dated March 20th, 2025, regarding the proposed Huron Shores Optimus Community Project fundraising plan be received. The council provide comments so the final fundraising plan can be developed, endorsed, and incorporated into a future agreement between the Huron Shores Optimus down to Plympton-Wyoming. All clear on that motion, Deputy?
Not clear yet. That does not preclude any of these arrangements for. Correct?
Correct.
Again, the arrangements for financing were set during that initial motion, which set the level at 50%. If council wishes to change that level, a reconsideration motion would be needed.
Well, I would like to have a reconsideration motion then, because like, if this, you're saying, I thought I heard through this whole conversation that can be adjusted. But now it can't.
Okay, procedure. Clerk.
Your worship, we need to deal with the motion that's on the table now, which is just about the fundraising plan. And then if someone would like to make a motion to reconsider the other past motion. And it has to be moved.
The fundraising plan we're talking about is the 50%.
The fundraising plan is based off of the past motion, which is the 50%.
The plan, just the plan and how they're going to fundraise. The plan doesn't speak to a percentage.
I believe it notes that they're looking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Again, I'd just like to reiterate, a lot of all of this hinges on grants. So if and when we know whether we get grants or not, at that time, we can then discuss a reconsideration motion, correct?
And if you pass this motion, you're
At a
accepting,
later date.
you're expecting the funding plan as is. At a later date, it would be confirmed in a formal agreement. If council at any point in time wishes to change the minimum fundraising amounts, at any time a reconsideration motion can be brought forward.
It doesn't have to happen.
No, I brought it up as part of my staff report because we were talking funding, so it seemed appropriate to note those alternative opinions at the time. However, it can occur today or it can occur prior to the final agreement through reconsideration motion.
Wouldn't it be better if they know ahead of time and what that fundraising project is going to be? Wouldn't it be better to know whether it's going to be 50 or 75% now? Instead of, okay, they're going to go home and think it's 50%, which it is right now. But then we bring it back up in 2 months. Oh, you guys, now you're going back on your word, which we would be.
Speaking in very general terms, if you were looking to fund any project, whether it's through fundraising or otherwise, moving a goal towards the end of that project is always more difficult than moving it earlier in the project.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
So clerk, procedure wise, do we defer this one? Or we change, pass it?
Your worship, you have the option to defer if you wanted to wait for more information on the grants. I'm not sure, I'm not involved in the committee, so I'm not sure of the timelines and how that impacts everybody. I think that's really more of a Mrs. Swansky things.
So again, the motion is fundraising plan be received and that council provides comments, which you have, so that the final fundraising plan can be developed, endorsed, and incorporated into the final agreement. So you're accepting it in principle. The final form of it will be in the final agreement. By accepting this, there's nothing in there saying that it's 50%. A reconsideration motion would change that because that is established through a previous.
Councilor Bojan?
I think two clarification requests. The first one being it's also by we were approving this fundraising plan. The fundraising plan itself is contingent on the grant. So that conversation piece is at least retained here because the optimists in their fundraising plan are contingent on the grant. My other thing was Mr. Spansky kind of already alluded to it, but if you read the motion, all we're doing tonight is receiving that proposal, provide our comments, which we did, so that they can finalize the proposal and bring it back for endorsement. So we're not approving anything with that motion. We're receiving it and providing our comments. If council wants to revisit the previous motion, that's a separate conversation, but this motion itself has nothing to do with endorsing. It's just receiving the report, the way I read it.
So Basie,
Just to be the devil's advocate, we're relying on this 1.3 million grant. Does that constitute fundraising for them? So in other words, their commitment is done. We've still got 1.3 million of.
Do you believe the motion says 50%, not including the grant?
Of the remaining.
Van Claveren?
So we could approve this motion to accept discussion. And then immediately following, we could make a motion to adjust that percentage.
That's kind of what I was, it's kind of what I was alluding to, is we can deal with this motion because this motion doesn't have anything to do with the percentage. This motion is literally just, we heard the presentation, we received the presentation, we provided our comments. And then if a council member at that point wants to put a notice of reconsideration for a previous motion, that's the way I understand it.
Appreciate your voice. We can do that.
Yeah, that's the first motion that's on the table. That's exactly what you said.
Understand that? We're clear. Okay. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Period.
Now, can I make a reconsideration motion?
Yes.
I have to. Your worship, I have to confirm that the member that moves it had to be on the majority side in favor with the original motion. Now, it was not a recorded vote, so I don't have. Was in.
You have to look that up.
I don't have a recorded vote. The procedural bylaw says that you voted with the majority, so the majority meant that it carried.
Skills honor.
Yeah.
Skills honor. Just give me a minute, your worship.
No problem.
You have to have 2/3 to better do.
Yeah, so moved by a member that voted with the majority and the 2/3 to reconsider. So, sorry, it was Deputy Mayor and
Councilor Van Claveren, I believe.
so that's just the motion to reconsider. And then if it passes, then we bring the actual motion out in.
A motion by Deputy Mayor McEwen, seconded by Councilor Van Claveren, that motion to the February 28th, 2024 council meeting be reconsidered. All those in favor?
That 3.
That's a tie. 3. Anybody over here voting yes?
Voting? Oh. Majority's 4.
So it's,
If it doesn't pass, then we don't open the motion and you can reconsider in the future. If it fails.
okay, so that motion fails.
Doesn't the mayor vote?
Certainly, we're told no.
Why?
So we require 4. It's 7-member. So he's an individual, he can not vote. It's forced when there's tied, right?
Never mind. All of a sudden it's different.
But I have the right to vote.
You have a vote.
Oh, I
yeah.
thought, yeah.
No, sorry, yeah.
I thought I did, but
Yeah, no, you have the right to vote.
I thought you
Asked.
I thought you declined as well.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I
think you
saw-
declined, that's why I said
I
it's
saw
a
it
choice.
I saw it the same way.
Okay, yes. All right. You're the same vote as everybody else.
all right. All those in favor again?
So. If you give me a moment, your worship, this
Mhm.
is a really long motion. I'm. Make it go.
You need to.
Want to get it right now?
Yeah.
Well, there's a little lull. I just mentioned that. I'm not doing this to be difficult. It's just that I think in the future, we're gonna come back and refer to this 50%, which was originally mentioned. So it's gotta be clear now what we're doing. That's all. If it's not clear, then we have all these, we get another fancy letter.
Yes.
Excuse for a
Yeah,
second.
go right ahead, Counselor. Council will be taking a 5-minute break after this item of business is completed.
So
We're taking a break, your worship.
After this is done.
Oh, I just saw my. Oh, we're gonna wait.
To
So now it's being reconsidered. Which we need to filling in that blank, your worship. So that's that section I believe council wants to change.
Okay, so let's read the whole thing out for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna need a mover and a seconder for this, and it's to endorse partnering with the Huron Shores Optimist to increase the recreational opportunities in the Kalaki area. Support the Huron Shores Optimist Club. Page 3 of their fundraising activities. Direct staff to work with HSO to form a committee consisting of members of council, town staff, Huron Shores Optimists, and the Kalaki Athletic Association to coordinate public consultation, find the facility design, obtain accurate quotations, formalize the budget, and develop a funding plan. Require that a minimum of 75% of the project funding be raised through fundraising activities by the Huron Shores Optimists prior to commencing the project. And that alternate funding arrangements must be considered by the Huron Shores Optimists. Direct staff to work with the Huron Shores Optimists and the town's legal counsel to develop an agreement to facilitate the project. Staff be directed to develop a budget for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan be considered during the 2025 budget deliberations.
Second.
So I need a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Van Claven. Councillor Basie.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. On the 2/3 vote you guys talked about. After you had a revote on the 2/3 vote, you had to have a 2/3 positive vote, right? Is that correct to get this motion through?
Majority vote.
So it's not 2/3?
Majority.
Okay. Thought you were 2/3, thank you.
There was a few conversations going on.
Just to reconsider it.
Fill that in. I didn't fill it in because I wasn't sure of the number. Wanted to propose.
Oh, sorry. So council clear on that motion?
Read it again, would you, Mr. Mayor? Please.
You asked. You, I will do.
And I'll ask for a recorded vote on this too, please.
First is the partnering with the Huron Shores Optimists to increase the recreational opportunities in the Kamlaki area and support the Huron Shores Optimist Club. In page 3 of 25 of their fundraising activities. Direct staff to work with the Huron Shores Optimists to form a committee consisting of members of council, town staff, Huron Shores Optimists, and the Kamlaki Athletic Association. Coordinate public consultation, refine facility design, obtain accurate quotations, formalize the budget, and develop a funding plan. Requires that a minimum of 75% of the project funding be raised through fundraising activities by Huron Shores Optimists prior to commencing the project. Alternate funding arrangements must be considered by the Huron Shores Optimists. Direct staff to work with the Huron Shores Optimists and the town's legal counsel to develop an agreement to facilitate the project. Staff be directed to develop a budget for a Parks Recreation Master Plan to be considered during the 2025 budget deliberation.
Maybe we take a break.
Can we just pause for a second?
Yes,
We need to confirm something.
okay. Council, we're gonna take a 5-minute break before we come back to the vote. We have to confirm something. And I'm not gonna read it again.
I only heard that in one ear.
That was the
Okay, we're back. Thank you, everybody. Clerk and Mr. CEO have an announcement to make.
Yes, your worship. So the clerk and I reviewed the procedural bylaw. The clerk did confirm that is a 2/3 vote. 2/3 vote is 4.6 of 7. Therefore, to meet the minimum 2/3 vote, you need 5. So in that situation, Madam Clerk, would the reconsideration motion passed?
No, we had 4, so it would not have passed.
Thank you. So the reconsideration motion failed.
Yeah.
So we are not reconsidering the motion at this time.
Okay, so the record will reflect that.
Yep, can you?
Apologies for the confusion. The old bylaw apparently stated majority. The current bylaw states for 2/3. So,
I can rip that off. I was bending.
Round up. It was round up.
well, you can't be 2/3 if you haven't got 2/3, right? So
Okay, council, let's move along. Item 6.1 on the agenda. I have a motion by Councillor Van Claveren, seconded, but you guys can leave.
Go.
Motion by Councillor Van Claveren, seconded by Deputy Mayor McEwen, that the minutes be adopted by council and those confidential minutes of the closed sessions. Council remain confidential and restricted to public disclosure in accordance with the exceptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. That would be our special council meeting budget consideration minutes of March 5th, 2025, as well as our regular council meeting minutes of March 12th, 2025. Council, you've had an opportunity to review them. Any questions, concerns? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, let's go to item 6.2, committee meeting minutes. Moved by Councillor Bojan, seconded by Councillor Vaizey, that the minutes be adopted by council and those confidential minutes of the closed sessions remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act. The Environmental Service Committee meeting minutes of February 6th, 2025. Wyoming Public Cemetery, Inactive Cemetery Committee minutes, January 9th, 2025. Councillor Bojan here from the Environmental, as well as Councillor Wolvett from the Cemetery Committee. Any questions? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, let's go to item 6.3, Councillor's report. Deputy?
I don't think I want to hear, oh, I mean. Mr. Wolfett. Do you have anything to? report?
No, I don't have anything tonight, thanks.
How about you, Mr. Van Claveren?
A pass for me, thank you.
Another one? Good, we'll make it nice and quick. Mr. Bougen?
I'm good, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Vaizey?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Ms. Rodriguez?
So we had the annual general meeting for the Conservation Authority last week in Watford. We had some new board members joining us to replace some 2-year participants. Amory Gillis is being replaced by Brian White. And Ms. McCallum, who resigns from her council position. She was replaced by Ian Z, who is the mayor.
You were elected vice chair.
Yes. So I like it that they have 2-year terms, so everybody, because it's a large board, 21 members, so it's nice that everybody can kind of move through that. Oh, they also had some service awards. Councillor Burrow from the City of Sarnia, I sat on that board for 20 years. 20 years, that's phenomenal. That's dedication. Also, I just want to note that there was a woodlot hearing yesterday at the County of Plympton. 5-acre portion of the tree lot will be removed to allow for drainage installation on Main Street. It was possible, Lambton Wildlife was there advocating for conservation. It was possible for sections of the treat area to be removed to allow for the drainage installation. But in that scenario, trees would have to be installed. So instead, the developer proposed to plant 2-for-1 trees in cooperation with the St. Clair Conservation Authority at the Hillsborough Hazard Lands on that development land. So they'll all, I would be happy to see a large number of trees be removed. It's an overall positive outcome because 2/3 of that existing woodlot will remain in place, which makes it quite viable. And the hazard lands in Hillsborough will have a newly formed woodlot, a rather large one, that will remain protected for many years. And I think that's a highly positive outcome for extremely environmentally sensitive shoreline, which nobody seems to think it's environmentally sensitive, and it is. So.
Yeah. Good, thank you. I'll give mine. You didn't do a lot this past month, did you, Mr. Mayor? You were pretty well laid out.
I did not. Thank you, Deputy, and thank you for covering for me.
You're welcome. I went to 5 events that you couldn't attend, and I had lunch at a couple of them, and suppers at a couple of them. It was really worthwhile. I mean, and they were interesting events too. Anyway, and the museum people, they really want to thank that Mr. Vasey suggested, so they're very thankful. That's all I have to report. Council reports. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, let's go to 7.1. I have a motion by Councilor Vasey, seconded by Councilor Bojan, that the council remuneration claims for February 2025 be approved for payment. Questions? Councilor Vasey.
Yes, just a statement. I have an error on my sheet. The one council meeting was canceled and moved to March, so we'll make that up in March.
Okay, no problem. All those in favor? Carried. Let's go to 8.1. Motion by Councilor Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Bojan. The report by Adam Sabansky, Chief Administrative Officer, dated March 20th, 2025, regarding a condolences, congratulation policy for the town of Plympton-Wyoming be received, and that council approves policy number 85, condolences and congratulations policy. Mr. Sabansky, anything to add to your report?
Not specifically, sir. It is more or less just a formalization what has been carried out previously. Although because it wasn't in the formal policy, we noticed some inconsistencies. So to ensure we are consistent with the application of the policy, we decided that a formal policy would be wise, and given it applies to council and committee members, that it should be endorsed by council.
So it's basically been all over the map, so you're bringing it in line.
Yes.
Any questions? All those in favor? Carried. Go to 8.2. Motion by Councilor Wilbett, seconded by Councilor Van Claver. That the report by Diane Gould Brown, Executive Assistant Deputy Clerk, dated March the 3rd, 2025, regarding the 2025 spring newsletter be received. Council approved the distribution of the newsletter with the interim tax billing. Council, you've had a chance to review the draft that Ms. Gould Brown has put together. Well done. Thank you very much. Any questions, comments, Deputy?
Yeah, there's on page 85 of our agenda. Actually, it's what is page 3 of 5 of your newsletter. The bottom right, it has the special events that are going to go on. Could you maybe mention where they're going to be, like the Easter extravaganza is going to be in Kamlaki rather than just leave it like that? And the picnic in the park would be at McKay. And Celebrate Canada, where's that, in McKay Park?
No, I wasn't Kimlaki.
Sorry?
Kimlaki's the candidate.
Oh, Kimlaki, okay. And Halloween Spooktacular will be in Kimlaki, right? Christmas in the Village, Wyoming. You won't put those, because then they at least know where they're gonna be going. Right? Okay. And then they've got the exact dates available now for the chemical stuff going to. They were issued today, I think. Somebody sent them to me, so at least they're available. And then can you explain to me on page 5 of 5, Kimlaki Community Center pricing updates. One thing is main hall with kitchen, and then we have the main hall with kitchen and bar. And well, are the two the same? I'm not sure how to understand that. Main hall with kitchen / bar. And the next one is main hall with kitchen and bar.
It might be kitchen or bar.
Sorry?
You might be trying to get at kitchen or bar, I think.
Oh,
Or does it refer to during the week is cheaper price than the weekend?
Through your worship, I believe Councillor Bojan's right. It's, you can rent the main hall and the bar without the kitchen, or the kitchen without the bar, and the next one is to have both.
Gotcha.
Can we
That
put-
makes sense?
can you take that slash out and put in all?
Slash implies with. So, yeah, so I see.
That's all. I was confused on that one, but then I've been confused on a couple other things tonight too, so.
Hopefully the evening's over. The evening's not over.
No, it's not over. I'm afraid of. That's all for now.
Anything on this side? Okay, with those modifications, Ms. Brown, thank you very much. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, let's go to item 8.3. Moved by Councillor Rodriguez, seconded by Councillor Bojan, the report by Aaron Warchuk, clerk, and Paul De Silva, Director of Public Works, dated March 21st, 2025, regarding the traffic and parking bylaw updates to be received, and that traffic and parking bylaw 27 of 2025 be taken as having been read 3 times, finally passed, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign said bylaw accordingly. Mr. Warchuk or Mr. De Silva, anything to add to your reports? Questions? All those in favor? Oh, Councillor Bojan?
This is the parking one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I just have one question. Is, not to drag this out, but are we confident that the parking without consent isn't too vague? Because I think the direction from council was parking will not be paid for anyone visiting the beach or the park. It's for the boat launch. So I'm just wondering if that might cause confusion for someone who doesn't know if they have consent to park there to go to the beach. So I'm wondering, is there a way to make it trailer parking or something along those lines where someone's parking a trailer without a permit? Or something. I'm just nervous about it being too vague. Boat trailer, yeah. I'm just nervous about it being a bit too vague, because if I don't know if I wasn't sitting here at this table and I saw that, I'd be afraid I can't park there to go to the beach.
I would suggest that the on-site signage would clarify that. We could probably market boat parking and then reminders about the fees, and then free beach parking for over here. Signage would help with that confusion, I would think. I think there was a reason why bylaw enforcement left it vague. It works with the legislation better, if I'm correct in stating that. So I think they'd like to leave it as that. We can address it on site through Public Works by ensuring everything is appropriately signed.
That meets bylaw requirements.
So we're working on the signage right now. Should the bylaw pass, we were gonna work on signage for down there, so it was very clear. And this already has been vetted through legal, so they were comfortable with it as is. But I see your point.
I'm good with that. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, let's go to item 8.4. Motion by Councillor Rodriguez, seconded by Councillor Bojan. The report submitted by Paul De Silva, Director of Public Works, dated March 13th, 2025, regarding the sewer use discharge bylaw 67 of 2017 dash update be received, and that bylaw 67 of 2017 be repealed and that bylaw 15 of 2025 be taken as having been read 3 times, finally passed, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the said bylaw accordingly. Any questions on that? Councillor Van Claver and then Councillor Wilbert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Who might carry out the inspections?
Through your worship, that's to be determined. Our preference would be to enlist the help of a professional plumber, certified plumber, who could make those specific determinations of whether somebody does have an illegal connection. But the program, which we plan to have endorsed by our Environmental Services Committee and subsequently by this council, has not been completed yet. We're working on it right now. So those details will be vetted.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wilbert.
Yeah, this particular item certainly was in the environmental committee and was moved over to full council here. Certainly, one of the things I recommended. As we out in the outside of town here do not have storm sewers. Back in the day, it was allowed to put your sump pump into the sewage system, which you start going into people's homes and that you're going to find lots of them are connected. Will be connected to the sewer. Because it was allowed and what I've been told was they were grandfathered in at that time. I say not everybody has storm sewers. So this has been argued just this term of council, but previous terms of council. There's also other things that go into the sewage systems. And I don't know if anybody in this room realizes just how much water their furnaces put out. Anybody here realize how much water their furnaces put out? A lot of water. And where do you think that goes? Most of the time it goes into the sanitary sewer system. Same thing in your basements, especially the homes out our way, not so sure in town. A lot of your floor drains in your basements. The one in my home, floor drain right in the furnace room. And if the sump pump overflows, down into there and goes to the sanitary sewer. So there's lots of, and as well as dehumidifiers and other streams of water. So this could become a contentious issue when people start coming and want to go into your homes and do dye checks and stuff like that. We looked at the last term of council infiltration into the sewage systems, and we found lots of places where catch basins were leaking. And I do believe we've corrected most of them. There was quite a few that were allowing water, even right over here, I think in Eddie's Way, there was improvements made to the catch basins with water going down and out our way. So I just wanted this to come to the full council to understand when they start going into people's homes and they're not allowed or people don't want them in there, this could become a contentious issue. Okay, like I say, back in the day, we're grandfathered in to be allowed to go into those storm drains. I realize what this says in this bylaw that, yeah, maybe at the time, but things change and that's not allowed to happen now, but it was allowed to happen then. So just needed to bring that up to all account.
Thank you, Councillor Wilbert. Mr. De Silva?
Yes, through your worship, if I may, there's quite a few issues to kind of unpack there, so I'll attempt to address them all. Starting with the issue of the whole grandfathering in, I think when we talk about some pumps being allowed or not allowed, it's a parallel issue here, but the bylaw already strictly prohibits some pumps being able to be connected to the sewers. So that's not really, respectfully, that's not really what we're debating. We're debating our ability to go inside a home and make sure that some pumps aren't connected because they're already prohibited. You're right that there is a lack of storm sewers, but many municipalities, and I put this in my report, many municipalities don't actually permit people to discharge their sump pumps to their storm sewers. They're either discharged to the ground where they can get away and soak in, or overland flow, or to drywall catch basins. Our I&I program on the municipal side, because we do acknowledge that storm like this infiltration doesn't just come from private residences, it very much comes from our own systems. And we've started a rigorous program to camera inspect all of our sewers, and we started last year in Kamalaki, and we found some significant issues and we've corrected them. So it's a two-pronged approach. It's on the road allowance, on our stuff, as well as private systems. And just to give some context, you know, a typical sump pump will discharge out of rate about 3 liters per second. An 8-inch sanitary sewer, which is the most common size, running at minimum grades, has a capacity of about 20 liters per second. So you can see 6 or 7 sump pumps can overwhelm the system. That's why it's so important that we start a program and start removing these. And this is not a punitive thing. We have a program that pays, in many cases, 100% of the cost for this removal. So we're not going in and saying, you know, you have to remove this and you're on your own. We're saying, hey, you have an issue, but we want to help you. And that's what the subsidy program is for.
Ryan Clapper.
Would there be an opportunity for folks to volunteer their property, like be proactive about it? I think I am discharging into the sewers. I want to send it out the back. Can you help me with that?
We have that program in place right now, and at least once a year, we communicate out that through Facebook, that we have the subsidy program. So we're currently already doing that. If we do go with a full mitigation plan, we would want to target kind of our higher risk areas. People are experiencing basement flooding from time to time. I have spoken with these people. They do want us to act. So that's why we're bringing this forward.
Okay, rebuttal?
Yes, you're allowed. Yeah.
Thank you. Number one, this bylaw 67 of 2017, what I'm talking about is way back when the sanitary sewers were installed out in the township. So this is a new bylaw, wouldn't affect the grandfathers. Because just because you make a new bylaw doesn't mean that everybody's got to go and tear their house down. You don't walk in and start changing building codes and something that was built back then and passed. That's the way it is. So that's all. I'm just telling you what I've been told out there about this grandfather. Do I agree with it or don't agree with it? It's not the case. I'm just bringing it to the attention that it could cause problems if people refuse to let you in their house out in the rural area. So that's what it's all about. I don't disagree with things going down the sanitary sewers. But I think probably the first thing you should do is take a look at your infiltration and find out, you can find out where it's coming from. You know, when it rains, you know, when you got the snow melt, to do your infiltration measurements, find out what laterals are the worst. Maybe address them first. Maybe that's just some improvements maybe you can do. Anyways, that's all I can say about it.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, Councillor Rodriguez.
Thank you. Yes, I would definitely like to see a different approach here rather than an intrusive one, a more cooperative approach. In saying that, I full-heartedly agree with Councillor Lovett. A lot of these that I'm worried about would absolutely predate that bylaw. And a lot of there's actual reasoning for a lot of it, especially when you have no storm sewers. A lot of these hamlets abutting the shorelines of the lake. There was a lot of effort to what we would call de-water those areas by any means necessary to help mitigate some on-ground, below-ground shoreline bluff erosion. And by all accounts, those measures have done a tremendous amount of good, more benefit than what I feel you're trying to accomplish here. There's many things you can put down: a kitchen sink, a toilet, anything. I don't think there's any harm being done here. And also under recommended, I think over time, you can definitely move in the direction you want to, but I'm a little bit confused because when I read in all the recommended reading, all those water sewer reports, I mean, we're at 40% capacity in the Kamalaki, we're at 50. Have your biggest problems when there's heavy rainfalls, things like that, overwhelming the system. So it's not a matter of there's two different words there, but whatever there. And I found with the Cam Leggy one in particular, all of the 4 issues, all were homeowner problems that were addressed and resolved. In Wyoming, I felt there was kind of a different problem, so I don't feel like it's necessarily community-wide. When I read it and trying to interpret what you're writing here, I'm trying to bring the two together to get some context. I'm not sure, but I still think it's very important that unless there's something triggers, like in the building code, electrical panels, for example, septics, anything you go to do to get anything, you automatically want to look at that septic. I think at that time it helps progress things along to get to your goal. As you've acknowledged here, it's going to take many years to accomplish this as it is. But just going into somebody's house and imposing an expense upon them when they might not have any other alternatives, or it might be extremely difficult, or cost prohibitive. I don't know. And the cost prohibitive, I understand you're saying some costs are covered, but some of these homes just don't work. Some of these modern homes do.
Mr. De Silva, would you like to respond to that?
Would, and through your worship, I apologize if I conveyed that we weren't looking to take a cooperative approach. The mitigation plan has not yet been finalized. It has not yet been endorsed. All I'm asking is for a new bylaw, actually a new clause in an existing bylaw, to allow us to at least undertake those inspections. And again, it's meant to be cooperative. It's not meant to be punitive. You read some of our operational reports. You can see the flows that get generated every single time it rains. The wastewater treatment plants are not the only infrastructure that is affected by that. We have pumping stations that are also affected, as well as the potential for flooded basements. So I still feel strongly that we need this. Most modern sewer bylaws do have this exact clause. Municipalities within the county also have this clause. But that's all I can really say about it.
Savansky?
From a home ownership perspective, it should be noted that your home insurance will sometimes reduce the payment you get for a flooded basement if they determine your sump pump is connected to a sanitary sewer. So what we're doing is not necessarily punitive. It's not out of the ordinary. Common practices well, not even common practice. Today's standard is you do not do that for the reasons that Mr. De Silva stated. Hydraulically, sanitary sewers are not designed to handle stormwater. And when you get numerous sump pumps connected to a sanitary sewer and you get heavy rains, which we get more often, you get basement flooding. We've had basement flooding. That basement flooding was the result of stormwater, not sanitary backups. We are trying to minimize the amount of stormwater in the system, which minimizes the risk to property owners and the damage they get, which minimizes the risk to the town of Plympton-Wyoming. I understand that there's going to be homes that are not happy with the program and it is challenging, but this program is a benefit to the community as a whole, as it will prevent damage to the environment, damage to private property, and damage to public property.
Again, and I appreciate all of that. And we have to take into account that our jurisdiction has a little bit of a different layout than some of these other jurisdictions. And I don't know if this is just solely directly related to just these sump pumps, because in Blue Point, for example, you'll have tie-ins to the storm drains to also help mitigate. We can put our eaves troughs, tie them in, and other things, right? Yes, absolutely.
It's actually in their storm bylaw that's not allowed.
So this is where I'm confused, because that actually was a provision that was put in. And again, a lot of these things, which I think the history is being missed, that they're put in for a reason because of the unique geography of some of these areas. And it would be counterintuitive to try and stop those and then create a whole new problem. So I think we need to consider those uniqueness. And Blue Point is very much a unique subdivision in the sense that it was allowed to do that, and that those tie-ins were put on every property to help mitigate those problems. And by far, it's been an absolute success in help mitigating some of those environmental problems. I'd rather redirect that water to a wastewater system or storm drain. Everybody dumping it on their lawns. It's just counterintuitive to what the whole purpose was for.
So,
For your worship, the only comment I have is that you can redirect the sump pump to the storm sewer.
Okay, thank you.
That's permitted.
any further discussion? So, sorry, yeah.
I'm sorry, I was scratching my head.
All right, hear the motion. Call for the vote. All those in favor?
I'm not sure what I'm voting on anymore. I'm voting for this bylaw. Yes, that's what we're doing, right?
Yes. That passes. Okay, let's go to item 8.5. Motion by Deputy Mayor McEwen, seconded by Councillor Van Claveren. That the report submitted by Paul De Silva, Director of Public Works, dated March 14th, 2025, regarding the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund project recommendations be received, and that council endorses an application to the CHIF to complete priority projects identified in the approved wastewater master plan. Any questions, Mr. De Silva?
It's through your worship. I just, it doesn't affect the motion, but I do want to revise the numbers for council's benefit. As I've been working through the application, these numbers were provided in today's dollars. Because this is a multi-year project, we have to be completed by 2031. Those prices have escalated by inflation every year, so we're up to 16.8 million total, of which 50% would be funded instead of the 14.5 that I noted in my report.
So from 14.5 to
16.8.
Any questions? Mr. Councilor Wolbeck?
I guess there's a round of new applications, according to what I heard on the news for this fund. The third application. We applied for the second.
Mr. Silva?
Yeah, through your worship, I believe that would be the Housing Enabling Fund, which is administered through the province. This one is administered through the federal government.
Thought I'd heard about this one, but it could be wrong. Okay.
Councilor Bojan?
Is this now the rates dropped? I'm assuming. Well, similar to the province, when the rate was dropped, there was no more. Like, can we even apply right now?
Yeah.
We still apply. They're just making the assumption they're gonna get reelected and everything's the same. Fine, give us some money, great.
I can't speak for the federal government, but the application deadline is March 31st and our application will be in by that time.
All those in favor? Carried. 8.6. Motion by Councilor Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Vacy, that the report by Aaron Kowarchuk, clerk, dated March 19th, 2025, regarding the 2026 municipal and school board elections method and request for proposals be received. That council authorize the use of internet voting as an alternative voting method in the 2026 municipal election, and that council authorizes staff to participate in a joint request for proposals for an internet voting service provider, other municipalities in Lambton County, the 2026 municipal and school board elections. Questions? All those in favor? Sorry, Councilor Wood, did you have a question?
What this proposal is doing is eliminating telephones, am I correct?
If I may, your worship, not eliminating, I'm not recommending it. I did not recommend it again in the 2022, but council chose to add it back in.
If we go with this, telephones are out. So I don't agree with that. Number one, not everybody has a computer. Not everybody can walk in here. In the last election, my own personal experience, I didn't have any trouble with the telephone, but I certainly had trouble with the online, as Aaron knows, I come in to get help how to get on it. And it was simply not clicking in the right place on the computer. I get it, it wasn't a complicated thing. But I think the telephone, even though it may be a small percentage, it's an option for people to be able to vote. And we need as many options as possible. And not everybody has got a computer or knows how to use one. So I would not support this without the telephone. That's just my opinion.
Councilor Rodriguez?
I would absolutely second that. A great deal of the diverse population every day, and they still very much exist. There's still a great deal of the population that relies on that traditional phone that does not have technology.
Any further discussion? Councilor Bojan?
Is there a way to know? I think I'm trying to find that number again. I think it was 18% of people use the telephone in the last election, which is significant. Is there a way to defer that decision specifically? Like, it's hard to say because we don't know how much, if I read this correctly, we don't know how much it costs to just throw it in there, right? So is there a way for us to just keep a status quo? And I'm assuming we get a quote at some point about how much it costs to run it, or is it legislation that we have to say how we're doing it right now?
So we don't have to set the method of voting until May of the year of election, so we have time for that. When we did the last RFPs with the city of Sarnia, because each of the lower tiers does it differently, the bidders did, or proposals, did include the price for the internet, and then they broke out phone. So you could see that when it comes back. The advantage of deciding now means we can go in with the RFP and we can ask that the price be broken out. And then that method doesn't necessarily have to, like, it could come back and change, or we just drop off the phone part. But it's just a lot clearer now to know when going in. I don't know what obviously I don't know what the phone or internet will be. So I agree. I was saying that today to someone, like, I can't even say it will save this much money because we have no idea what that will come in. If we're the only one getting phone service provided through this person that submits a tender, it may be way more. Like, I don't know how that's going to turn out. It's just, how do we want to go forward with the proposal?
I think one of our neighboring municipalities just went strictly this method. They're not using the phone.
Correct. Warwick's just decided that recently, Point Edwards. I agree that there is a niche for people that will use a phone. But in my experience, in the 2 weeks that we spent in this voter help center in the 2022 and the 2018 election, the most people that were calling us and coming in here that were so upset and frustrated were using the phone. Those were the biggest concerns. So they ended up coming in, and we tried to do it with them on the phone here and walk them through it, or they would end up voting online. The most frustration is with the phone. So trying to avoid that with people, but I understand if council wants to give that as an option. Public.
Councilor Van Cleveren?
I have no trouble going all internet.
Councilor Rodriguez?
So for clarification, if you submitted this with the phone and broke out the phone, we could still decide to drop the phone. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I might have to amend the motion because the bylaw doesn't have to come back yet. Here I'm asking you to choose an alternate method of voting, which is required by the act. So we could do that, put in the proposal as phone and internet, asking for the price to be broken out, so it'll be separate. I just don't know how long that's gonna take to come back. And then we could bring that bylaw based on that discussion, like to firm up in the method of voting bylaw. So we should have time.
Bojan?
And so city of Sarnia is kind of, if I understand you correctly, so do we know if they've dropped telephone?
If they did with the ballot day of, is that what they're doing? I think so. Paper ballot day of.
I do remember in the testing phases of it, the telephone really sucks because you sit there and listen to the robot talk for 25 minutes and then you forget what they said. And they butcher your name, even though we record it, staff record it, but it's hard to get everything in there, but I think it's also important to know, like, we still technically have, it's not a paper ballot, but I'm assuming we'll still do the same thing. We're on election day. There's things set up at town hall where folks can come in as if they're casting a ballot, which is good. But I would like to, I have a hard time cutting 18% without knowing how much it costs.
Just expand on
Yes.
little reply there. Having run an online business for almost 20 years, people figure it out. If they're offered the phone, going to be a select few that still use the phone. If the phone's no longer available, they will figure it out. And if they don't know how to figure it out, call somebody that does. That's just what they do. So you got to give them that opportunity to figure it out. And they will. And it's not disrespectful. It's not cutting them service. It's just moving on with technology, streamlining, making things more efficient.
Mr. Sabansky, then Councilor Wilbert.
Sarnia, a question was asked in regards to Sarnia's voting method. According to Sarnia Observer, as reported on February 12th, the city of Sarnia will be going with digital voting with paper ballots on the day of.
Thank you. Councilor Wilbert.
We keep wondering why people don't vote. We're out there trying to talk people into voting. Here we are sitting here, 18%, 15, 18% in this municipality is a significant amount of votes, whether you believe it or you don't. Here we are sitting here wanting to go totally computer. That'll certainly encourage percentage of people just not to bother, especially if they can't come in here and vote with paper ballots. That United States want to go back to paper ballots and only paper ballots, never mind computers and mail-ins. This is an incentive to get people to vote, not to de-incentivize. So, I mean, it's not a big issue, but that 15 to 18% of the votes, and I think everybody in this room that runs for council want to have the maximum amount of votes they can get if you run for council. And every little bit counts. So this is not a big deal. This is not a big expense. Supposedly we saved all this money on computer voting. I don't think we saved a whole lot, but maybe a little bit. We can put it towards the telephone. Anyways, that's the end of the discussion. The vote will take place and it'll happen.
You feel you have anything else left?
I think I better shut up while I'm ahead.
Your worship, I agree, Councilor. But we want to increase voter turnout. We want to attract people. We want people engaged. That is our whole goal here. Only reason it wasn't recommended is that I know it was a frustration for people. They had it as an option that they felt would be easier for them because they weren't comfortable with the computer. And then it became even worse. And a lot of them just said, I'm not even doing it. We'd be like, we're here for 2 weeks. We're here evenings. We're here weekends. Come in. We'll help you, walk you through it all. And it discouraged them more than anything. So I am fine either way. We'll make it work, whatever council's wishes. But don't ever feel that we're trying to discourage 18% of people to vote. That's not our goal.
Okay.
So
It was moved by Councilor Rodriguez, seconded by Councilor Bays. By Aaron Kwarchuk, clerk, dated March 19th, regarding the 2026 municipal and school board election method. Request for proposals be received. Council authorizes the use of internet voting as an alternate voting method in the 2026 municipal election. And that council authorized staff to participate in a joint request proposals for an internet voting service provider with other municipalities in Lambton County, the 2026 municipal and school board elections. So what you're proposing then is that the internet, now are you still going to have in person?
we would always have in person for with internet. Yeah, it would always be. If they would wish to amend it to add phone, that have the RFP. Come back after the RFP, and then when the method of voting bylaw is passed, if the phone is removed at that time, that's.
Councilor Bojan?
I was just gonna ask, Aaron just answered it. I just wanted to make sure we still get the price so that we can add it on later.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
the agreement will be entered into with council. Everything comes back to
Okay.
council.
Councilor Basie?
That's. I told them actually.
So amending to,
Councilor Rodriguez.
Yeah, so I agree with amending and I appreciate absolutely everything that you're saying. It's more of the op. That I
If I
think,
may,
I mean,
sorry, did you? We discussed this last time. I looked back at the last minutes. We wanted the optics to not, so last time we did, or sorry, 2018, we did phone and internet. And it was really advertised as phone and internet. So then when we discussed it here in 2022, we said, let's do internet with phone in a smaller, like it's there for you, but the main,
we read it out.
and it's still was, yeah,
It's still the.
yeah.
So, Councilor Rodriguez and Councilor Vaizey, are you okay with adding the use of phone and internet voting? Phone on it.
We really need to add it to this motion.
So she can get a price.
I
Yeah,
think so. I think so that the clerk can get a price.
we can drop it before the bylaws.
So then before we make it a bylaw, it can be dropped if we decide that that's not what we.
It ran, it sounded like we could do it anyway, but that's fine. One or the other. I'm good.
Okay, everybody okay over here? Bob, okay over there?
That's taking the phone out,
No.
leaving it in, get some pricing. That was about 4 conversation going on there.
I think we need a break.
Okay, phone's in.
Okay, we can vote for that.
Heather will have a whole article on this one. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, item number 9, nothing under bylaws, clerk.
Nothing.
Okay, let's go to correspondence required. That would be 10.1. A motion by Councilor Van Claveren, seconded by Councilor Willett, that the correspondence suggests the following motion. That the correspondence relating to the County of Plympton 2025 larvus sighting program be received that the town of Plympton-Wyoming supports local action by Plympton Public Health to reduce the risk of West Nile virus and authorizes any permanent application for West Nile virus control submitted to the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change from an appropriately licensed exterminator to apply larvicide into catch basins or surface water located within and owned and managed by the town of Plympton-Wyoming, located on private land that drain into the storm drain system or waterways located within the town of Plympton-Wyoming. Any questions? All those in favor? Carried. 8 points, sorry. 10-2. A motion by Councilor Van Claveren, seconded by Deputy Mayor McEwen, that correspondence suggests the following motions. The correspondence from EUSI Farms Limited be received and the council approve their exception requests, the half load restrictions for 2025 and approve map option A. Mr. De Silva.
If I may, through your worship. I think this request is very well intentioned, and while I sympathize with the request as the road authority, I would have to recommend that we deny it. I believe there is a chance for significant damage on Fisher Line if we allow fully loaded commercial vehicles to use it 6 trucks a day for the next, well, month at least. I will also add that we continue to monitor the conditions. We utilize the Good Roads calculator to determine whether these load restrictions could be lifted early. And when the calculations prove that it can, I will be recommending to council that we do. But at this time, that is just my staff recommendation.
Okay. Councilor Basie?
Yes, your worship, thanks. I'm in agreement with Mr. De Silva that does it matter to us what the weight is? there's weight restrictions for a reason, and we're being told every day our roads are garbage out that way. And then we're gonna allow heavy trucks to go down and just pound them to death. So, no, I don't agree with this at all.
Dr. Rodriguez?
So they're currently using like agricultural vehicles, correct?
Yeah.
Sorry?
They're kind of a modified.
But they're approved vehicles that they could use as of right now. That they've been using, and they're having to do more loads. And they're trying to reduce the amount of times they have to do it by going to this commercial, is kind of the way I read it. Am I wrong?
Mr. De Silva?
Yeah, through your worship, that's correct. And that point isn't lost on me either. Those farm equipment is exempt from half load restrictions. Now, the Ontario government put out a guideline regarding farm equipment on public roadways, and they do have a clause in there that says it's not carte blanche. They could be held responsible for damages to roads. So just because they are exempt does not mean they get to do necessarily what they want.
That's right.
Thank you. I could follow up to that. Is there a way for, obviously, they need to do this, they need to haul this stuff. Just let it sit there. Is there a way to form some sort of agreement where they pay a fee once a year that goes towards a roads reserve? And to allow this to happen, because it needs to, but also not to burden everybody unnecessarily. I mean, they have to pay their fair share to road improvements. This frustrates me because like in Huron Crest, for example, when the St. Clair Conservation Authority permitted 200 dump trucks to run through there and just, do so much damage to those roads. There was no collaboration with us who own the municipal roads to, make sure there was some sort of compensation in there for the use of heavier than accepted vehicles on these roads. Like, is there anything we can do in that sense? And it would help. It's a road reserve.
De Silva?
Yeah, through your worship. That's something I didn't consider, but just at first glance, I don't know if we could come up with a fee that would even come close to compensating us the amount that we would need to have to resurface a road, for example, if it was badly damaged during these operations. This person and other people have the option of just doing half loads. They can still operate their commercial equipment. They just have to restrict it to 5,000 bones per axle. Right now, they're requesting about 8,000 to 9,000, so it's almost double. So they can still operate. They're just going to have to do more loads.
Do the same amount of damage with more.
Well, you're the whole. Not to get too technical, but it's not a linear thing where they are going to do just as much damage with double the amount of loads. It doesn't really work that way.
Thank you.
Councilor Willett?
Drive out there and just looking at their route. Right now, they'll go up Fuller Road and they'll end up on Brush Road. And I don't believe we could stop them on those roads. They're gravel, right? Brush, or most of it is. So I just want to reinforce that what their suggestion is, and I think you already said it, Paul, is that it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing because they want to run up 21 highway, which are much better roads for heavier loads. We have no authorization there. But, to turn on to Aberarder or Fisher Line and take a shorter route certainly would get them off miles of Brush Road. Now, I don't know if I've ever heard any complaints about Brush Road and them trucks traveling, because there's a lot of trucks. So I don't think this is a bad alternative other than what you're saying. We don't beat the hell out of our roads. But when you look at the route, they don't have to travel too far down Fisher or Aberarder to get to their pit. Aberarder probably would be a better road because it's pretty hard surfaced. I don't know, is there any restrictions on Aberarder? Half loads? I'm not sure of that.
The county.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a county road.
Right.
It is half load restricted.
Is it?
And I spoke with the county and they won't grant an exemption on
But agriculture, do they have to obey that?
it.
They're,
Agricultural equipment is exempt. As well as a few other things, like if you're transporting them, for example, for whatever reason, that's
Yeah.
exempt.
they're exempt from the half load, right? So this guy could come all the way up 21 highway, down Aberarder, turn on the Brush Road, and he's exempt from the half loads anyways.
If he's operating agricultural equipment, yes.
Well, they are manure trucks, right? So I guess my point is, can't really stop them, can we?
Using.
21 highway or Everarder,
No.
because they're exempt from, or brush.
So if they use agricultural equipment, we can't stop them, as in it's not prohibited. However, if we notice that the road is becoming unpassable, then that conversation will happen. As I stated before, they could be held liable. There's not a lot of case law for that, but they could be.
But I guess the point I'm trying to make, I see these trucks all the time in the spring, in the fall, traveling up 21 highway. They have a big hit on highway also. Big, huge tires and everything else, but I don't know. I just thought in my mind, driving out there, it looked like a better alternative than having going all the way up and onto Brush Road all the way to that pit. So I thought this 21 Aberarder to the pit would be a better alternative. Especially on Aberarder because it's hard surfaced.
Silva.
But just the comment on Alberta, they can't, the county won't allow.
Stop the agricultural.
Well, sorry, I thought you meant the commercial vehicle. Yeah.
Well, yeah, this commercial thing, yeah, that's a little different twist there.
So have they ever asked for this before?
Not to my knowledge, but we get 2 to 3 requests a week regarding exemptions during this time.
You traditionally say no, thank you.
We give them the option of coming to council to ask for one, but yes, we say it's likely not gonna happen.
Councilor Bojan.
I'll just quickly say, I think it's a very reasonable compromise. I mean, they're there for a reason. I'm not a road engineer or know anything, but I know that they're for a reason though, and our roads suck. And we need to fix our roads. We need to protect our roads so they don't get worse. That said, I think it's a fair compromise. I think Mr. Silva said it, that we'll keep an eye on it. And if we can lift it early, like we've done in the past, I think last year we lifted it early because we had a really mild winter. Then we can lift it early. I think that's a very reasonable solution.
To make them pay.
Okay, let's move this along, folks. We'd be full.
Can I just clarify something, your worship? So this motion is in the positive, granting the option A. If council is not in favor of that, then you would vote against it, and Mr. De Silva would keep an eye on the Portminster program and see if he can lift it early.
Just so everybody's aware, I'll reread it again. Moved by Councillor Van Claveren, seconded by Deputy Mayor McEwen. Correspondence from EUSI Farms Limited be received and the council approved their exemption request, the half load restrictions for 2025 and approved map option A. Okay, all those in favor? That motion is defeated. Okay, let's go to correspondence, recommended reading and routine approval. 11-1. Moved by Deputy Mayor McEwen, seconded by Councillor Van Claveren, that correspondence items A to J relating to recommended reading and routine approval and information items be noted as received by the Plympton-Wyoming Council, filed accordingly. A to J. Councillor Bojan, anything for you?
Thank you.
Councillor Basie?
Thank you.
Councillor Rodriguez?
I thought they were all excellent reads. I do like J for the Lambton Open Detachment Board, asking the province to stay committed to helping supplement increasing these costs. And it has a motion in there that we can.
So you'd like to pull that and support that motion?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm gonna go on just and then come back to you, clerk. Deputy Mayor? Councillor Van Claveren?
Thank you, sir.
Councillor Wolvett?
You know, Jay would have been fine too, since that was quite a issue here in this council. So yeah, support Jay.
Right, well, wait for the clerk to do item J.
Pardon me? Oh, Bob did, sorry.
Aye. Okay, motion by Deputy Mayor Kuhn, seconded by Councillor Van Claveren, the correspondence items A to I relating to recommended reading and routine approval, information items be noted as received by the Plympton-Wyoming Council and filed accordingly. All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Rodriguez, seconded by Councillor Wolvett, that council supports correspondence items J from the Lambton Group OPP Detachment Board regarding continued provincial billing statement supplement. All those in favor? Period. New business, Councillor Wolvett.
Couple of things tonight, tomorrow night, at 7 o'clock, farm safety, we will be putting on an information night at the Ag Building down the road here for anybody that would like to attend. We're gonna be talking about a few things like road safety and other farm safety issues. So that's tomorrow night at the Ag Building at 7 p.m. Second item on here. Yeah, don't shoot the messenger, please. Had a request from a gentleman that would like to see a dog park down at the Reese's Corners Plaza. I said I would bring it and put it on the floor for discussion. I think he'd like the dog park just as you enter the plaza there, heading up Broadway, where you make your left turn into the plaza where the trees are, the shade trees. It's on the floor.
Mr. Baskey.
So I'll take this opportunity to provide council a public update. Engineers were on site on the plaza earlier this week doing a topographical survey in preparation for preliminary engineerings to start the process to look at potential possible future economic development opportunities as well as public service expansions. So as we work through that process, we will certainly keep the need for a dog park in Plympton-Wyoming in mind.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else, Councillor?
That's all. Thank you.
You'll be at farm safety tomorrow night?
I will.
Okay. Councillor Van Claveren.
Oh, and they'll be at the county building at 2 p.m. with the discussions on international plowing match, which is going to be a discussion on that may bring it to this area.
You'll be the overall chair, I heard.
No, you never know. But I will be there to hear what they got.
All right, thank you. Councillor Van Claveren.
Nothing for me, sir.
Deputy.
Nothing, thanks.
Councillor Rodriguez.
Yes, I have a couple items. I was going to speak to it at the last council meeting, but we had no internet. Our system was down or something that night. I just wanted to point out that we have some local residents that were featured in Sarnia Journal for their sustainable micro farming distance and the use of sharing. They are quoted in the paper. They live in the heart of Lambton County, which is Kamloops. So their names are Shane and Emma Roosevelt. And they are defining what it means to be sustainable farmers. They own Asian Organics and they have turned their 1.5 acre farm located in Kamlaki, as I mentioned, into an organic agricultural community driven food production. Wanted to give them a shout out. Nice to see that. Yeah. And especially on agricultural land and being able to use the local farm spaces positive way for food safety. Second item is sewer flushing occurring. And it's occurring in the Blue Point area. And people had some toilet blowout. So even though the town website notice states flushing will happen in the municipality until June 30th, doesn't provide a map layout with timelines for which areas of the town they will be in. So a lot of people are constantly going to look at the town website to look for things. So maybe do they have like a schedule of what neighborhoods they're going to be in to give people a heads up? Because it was a really crappy situation for some people. Sorry.
Mr. De Silva.
Through your worship. Two things. There is a map on the public notices section of the website that shows the entire area. We did receive some feedback on Facebook regarding a request to get a little bit more information, which we intend to do on a weekly basis. So hopefully by Friday, we'll be able to say exactly what they're going to do the following week, and we'll be able to update that accordingly. The whole situation about toilets, gurgling and stuff like that, that's unfortunately kind of common. And we would encourage anybody that's listening or anybody that you're speaking to phone us and let us know that that's happening at their property. We keep a list of residents who have complained about those issues, and our intent would be to provide them with a little bit more notification next time, say like a week in advance of them being there. That's not necessarily for everybody, like, so we, you know, when we flush sewers, it's thousands of homes and we can't exactly hand deliver thousands of notices. So, but our intent would be if somebody is having a problem, if they're experiencing those issues, we can make some additional attempts to notify them.
Yes.
So when you say that, so I was more like, can you just put on your website, we're doing this subdivision this week, subdivision that week, to give people kind of a, or able to get it out there through social media that that's what's, instead of being surprised. But when you say that, does that mean if somebody has that issue, they're gonna have that issue every time you do it? And some people will never have that issue if it's never happening? That's interesting to know, because I did want to know that. Because, yeah, why does it happen to someone not?
Yeah, so I can answer that question through your worship. It happens because people's plumbing systems are improperly or poorly vented. So as that air gets drawn through the system, it can't vent properly, so it tends to want to vacuum out the water in the traps, including the water in the toilets.
So that'll be my patient session. Oh, my third thing was I had told you earlier, like probably end of February, early March, regarding asking for signage to go on the shorelines, especially during the winter months, so you can actually just tell people to stay off the shore ice. I was gonna that last meeting, but again, but now the shore ice is gone, but I would still like to see something, and I don't know where if you were going to pursue that, what the follow. It's become, I think, more and more common that people are just attracted to going on the shore ice.
Through your worship, we have that on the radar. As soon as we had that conversation, we also posted something on social media warning people to stay off.
You did, but I noticed other jurisdictions have signs, actual signs, and it's kind of a even coffee shop, we told you so. They often a liability kind of thing, or due diligence, and that's kind of what. And that would be it. Thank you.
Councilor Basie,
Nothing, your worship.
Councilor Bolton,
Nothing tonight, thank you.
all right. The end of new business. Council, before we go in camera, let's take a 10-minute personal break. For those that are joining with us virtually, thank you very much for being with us this evening. When we come back, we'll be going direct to camera. if you'd like to do what you gotta do and then we'll